All right, let's jump right in. Today, we are talking about a really tense situation that's unfolding between Pakistan and Afghanistan. We're seeing a conflict that has blown up from just, minor border skirmishes to something way, way more serious, and it's happened incredibly fast. Okay, let's just start with this because, wow, this is not your typical diplomatic language, right? This is a blunt, incredibly stark declaration from Pakistan's defense minister. When a top official says something like this, it signals a massive shift. We've moved past tense relations and into a direct, overt military confrontation. So the big question is, how did we even get to open war so quickly? Well, it was a really fast-moving chain of events, basically a tit-for-tat escalation that just spiraled completely out of control along that mountainous border. Now, what's just wild when you look at this is the sheer speed of it all. So it starts with these attacks inside Pakistan. Islamabad points the finger at militants in Afghanistan and launches airstrikes. Then the Afghan Taliban hits back, firing on Pakistani posts. And that triggers this huge Pakistani counteroffensive, Operation Ghazab-Lil-Haq, which means something like Wrath for the Truth. It's a textbook domino effect where every single action just prompts an even bigger reaction. But, underneath all the explosions and the gunfire, there's a really fundamental disagreement. This whole conflict really hinges on one specific militant group, and what exactly should be done about them. And that group is the TTP, the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. Now, this part is super important to understand. They are a separate group from the Afghan Taliban that rules Afghanistan, but they're basically ideological brothers. The TTP's whole goal is to overthrow the Pakistani government, and this puts the Afghan Taliban in a really tough spot. If they crack down on the TTP, they risk angering their own hardliners. They could even push TTP fighters to join a rival group like ISIS-K. So this complicated loyalty is right at the very center of this whole storm. And here you can really see the two completely different stories being told. Pakistan's argument is pretty straightforward. Hey, the Afghan Taliban is giving the TTP a safe place to hide, and those guys then cross the border to attack us. So we're just acting in self-defense. But the Afghan Taliban fires right back, saying, whoa, no, the TTP is your internal problem, and you're just using them as an excuse, a pretext to attack our country. They're claiming their actions are purely retaliation. And this quote from an analyst in Kabul, Obaidullah Bahir, really hammers home the Afghan position. He flat out calls Pakistan's claim bogus and says there's no evidence. He also brings up that the Afghan Taliban had apparently offered to let a third party come in and verify Pakistan's claims of cross-border attacks, but that Pakistan said no. The suggestion there is that maybe they don't want their claims closely examined. So when you have both sides fighting and throwing accusations back and forth, trying to figure out what's actually happening on the ground, well, it's incredibly difficult. It's the classic fog of war, where the truth is always the first casualty. I mean, just look at these numbers. The difference is just staggering. Pakistan is claiming they killed 274 Taliban fighters. Meanwhile, the Taliban claims they killed 55 Pakistani soldiers. Both sides are reporting these huge successes against the enemy, while saying their own losses were minimal. And it is so important to stress, these figures could not be independently verified by anyone. This number right here, 274, this is the story Pakistan wants the world to hear. It's a figure that's designed to project overwhelming military success, a powerful, decisive response to what they're calling Afghan aggression. It paints a picture of a very successful, very punitive operation. But behind all those military claims, there's a real, tragic human cost. We're seeing reports of civilian casualties on both sides of the border. A hospital, a mosque, places that are supposed to be safe, they've been hit. And what's just heartbreaking is that Afghan refugees, who were just waiting to go home, got caught in the middle of all this fighting. This is the terrible reality for the people who actually live there. Now, this whole thing isn't happening in a bubble, right? It's all going down along one of the most historically volatile and complicated borders in the entire world. And you can bet the international community is paying very close attention. Look, you really can't understand this conflict without talking about the Durand Line. This border was literally drawn on a map by the British over a century ago, and it split the lands of the ethnic Pashtun people. The crucial thing is, no Afghan government, ever, has officially recognized it as a legitimate international border. This historical problem, it's a constant source of tension that's bubbling under the surface of every single dispute, including this one. So what is the rest of the world saying about all this? Well, the reactions are coming in fast, and they're kind of all over the map. You've got big players like the UN, Russia, and Iran all calling for everyone to calm down and talk. India, which is a regional rival of Pakistan, has come out and strongly condemned what Islamabad is doing. Meanwhile, China says it's actively trying to mediate, and other countries like Turkey and Qatar have been mentioned as possible negotiators to step in.
So where does that leave us? What's the bottom line here? Well, you've got two heavily armed neighbors, both of them claiming to be the victim, who have pretty much ditched diplomacy in favor of direct military force. This is not a minor skirmish. This is the most dangerous standoff we've seen between Pakistan and Afghanistan in a very long time. And that leaves us with the critical question, doesn't it? With Pakistan saying its patience has finally run out, and both sides choosing to fire shells instead of talk, where does this go from here? Is this just the new normal for the region, or can they still find a way to step back from the brink of a full-blown war? Honestly, that remains to be seen.